Hi, welcome to Tales of Dread. For this episode we have a closer look at Argentina. More specifically into these scary, supposedly true horror stories from Argentina that will give you the creeps tonight. I live in Argentina, which is not a very interesting, or well-known place. It's a small town a few miles away from the city of Cordoba. Cordoba is one of the largest cities in the country, so you've probably heard of it. My hometown is just far enough from a big city that we get many of its benefits without too many of its problems. The only bad thing is that life in a small town in Argentina is very traditional, and I'm gay. It's not as homophobic as some other countries in Latin America, but it's still pretty dangerous. I have a Grindr account for when you leave the cities. In my town, most guys don't use photos of their faces. They don't want to be around the city's homophobes. So you don't trade selfies with a guy until you've talked to him for a while. Early on, I met this one guy, and we got along well. He was friendly. He is probably the nicest person I've ever met. We started talking in the afternoon, and by the end of the day, we were trading selfies. We talked the whole night. I won't tell you a lie. I was totally crazy about this guy. We made plans to meet later in the week. On Thursday afternoon, we were going to meet at a coffee shop. This seemed to be fine. We both knew that we had to keep our relationship to ourselves and not have any PDA. Or showing your love in public. The coffee shop where we were going to meet was in the best part of town, and it had a nice balcony with a great view on the second floor. I got there about 20 minutes before the time we had agreed to meet. I wanted to get used to the place and build up my courage. I was honestly incredibly nervous. This would be the first time I've ever been with a guy. I asked for a small cup of water to drink on the balcony while I waited. As I sat there, I remember daydreaming a little bit. I could see the entrance area, so I could see who came in. But I got a text message from the person the guy had been talking to. He said he would be there. I looked down and saw a group of 4 guys walking. I started to worry right away. I told him I was in the bathroom in response to the text message. Then I looked down and saw that one of their phones had a notification. I thought these guys might have come here to hurt me. From the balcony, you could get to the side streets. When I looked at the 4 guys, 2 of them had baseball bats. I was about to go down. That's when I knew I had gotten away from something very violent. I left and went home quickly. It made me nervous because they now knew my full name and could picture me. They might have even kept the picture of me and put it somewhere online. I remember straight up freaking out all night. I was very upset that I couldn't go out with someone, and now I was afraid for my life. I had a feeling that these might be the guys who were trying to pull a prank to be mean or something, but I didn't know if that was the case or if they were a violent group of people who wanted to kill me for the rest of the week. They tried to reach me over and over. I blocked him on Grindr, but then he texted me. I blocked his number, but then someone else texted me saying they were the guy's cousin. He wanted to get to know me and kept asking me why I didn't show up at the coffee shop. I knew that this was all a trick. I remember that one night after the event, I was walking home to give my grandmother some things that my mom had borrowed. It had been very late. I'm a procrastinator. It had been a few weeks, and I knew that if I didn't do it that night, it wouldn't get done. But as I walked home, I noticed a guy following me. He tried to act like he was just walking in the same direction as me, but he made me feel very uncomfortable. I looked at him a few times to see if I remembered him from the other day, but none of the 4 guys who came to the coffee shop gave me a good look. In any case, it didn't help. I just got faster and faster as I walked. But the more I sped up, the more he did. At one point we were jogging. I decided I'd had enough and would stand up for myself. I stopped and got ready for a fight. I stood there for a few seconds, waiting for him to run at me and tackle me. But he just walked right by without even looking at me. I didn't understand what was going on, but then I realized that maybe I was just paranoid about everything. This guy might not have been following me after all. Even when I was out in public again, I worried that I was being watched a few times. I don't know who they showed my picture to, but they know what I looked like. Even now, I still feel like I'm being watched, which makes me very nervous and sad. One day, when I have enough money, I'll move somewhere else. I don't have to worry about anything. The hardest part isn't being attacked or shunned by people in the area. The hardest part is waiting for an attack while being afraid of it. I'm always scared about what my sexuality means. It's a fear that not many people know about, and it's also the reason why so many of us pretend to be straight. But yeah, that was my story about being followed by homophobic people who almost beat me up badly. They might still be looking for me. I'm from Argentina, and I don't speak English very well. So, I used Google Translate to tell you about my experience. I'm sorry if something isn't clear. This happened 7 years ago when I was in 6th grade and went on a trip with my elementary school to a hotel in another state where we would stay for a week. This happened on the 4th day. We had just finished dinner, and our caretakers told us we had to go to bed. The rooms were split into 3 groups of 3 boys each. I stayed with 2 friends in a room with 3 beds lined up next to each other against the same wall in front of the middle bed, where I slept. On the right side, there was a TV and a closet. On the left side, there was the bathroom. When we were getting ready for bed, my friends left the TV remote on top of the table and told me to go turn off the TV by hand, which I did reluctantly. When I got back into bed, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. There was something in the closet. It looks like someone's face was pulled out. It was light brown, but it had nothing in common with a person. This thing didn't have any eyes or a body, and it was half hidden behind the closet door. If I had to compare it to something, it would be that monster with the stretched out mouth from the game Amnesia, but without eyes. I didn't believe in ghosts, cryptids, or anything else like that. But even though it seemed odd, I didn't care. I thought it was a messy pile of clothes that looked like a face, or at least what I thought was a face because I was tired. I went to sleep, and when I got under the covers, I was a little bit curious. I stuck my head out from under the covers to check if it was still there. That face was gone, and there was a hole where it should have been. After that, I noticed another strange thing that was even more obvious. Someone in a white dress was standing a few meters away from my bed, between my bed and the TV. At that moment, I put on all my clothes. I started to wonder what room we would be staying in. There was no white, and there was no address. I couldn't have been confused because the walls were red and the floor was brown. I pinched myself and opened my eyes wide to make sure I wasn't dreaming, but I wasn't. I tried one more time to look around to see who was in the white dress. I was looking for them when I saw her. It was a face I will never forget. When I lifted the sheets to get a better look, I saw the start of a woman bending over and looking at me. She had black hair, Asian features, skin as pale as the moon, and a look that seemed to look right into your soul. She was very close to my face and had her eyes wide open. I put all of the sheets over myself and yelled to my friends to turn on the lights. They were only half awake and asked me why, so I yelled it again. When they finally got out of bed, I looked around and couldn't find any sign of that woman. I looked in the closet and the bathroom, but I didn't find anything. When I woke up my friends, they got mad and asked why I did it. I told them what happened, but they didn't believe me, as you might expect. When they turned off the lights, I couldn't sleep and stayed up all night because I was afraid the woman and the face of the closet would come back. Luckily, they didn't come back, and after that day I never saw them again. As usual, the holidays kept going, and on the 7th day, we went back to my town. When I tell this story to my friends, only a few of them believe me. But I would give my life to hear this story. That's right. But I don't have any proof of that. I live in California, and I left the country for the first time when I was 18. I had just graduated from high school with a G.P.A. So, as a way to celebrate, my aunt and uncle took me on a trip to South America. I was dating someone who wasn't important to the story at the time, but it comes up later. Anyway, we went to 5 different countries and were gone for a few months. My aunt and uncle were in their mid-20s, but in South America, the legal drinking age is 18. So, when we weren't sightseeing or taking the bus, we were out having fun. We stayed in hotels and hostels, which were all great because the people there were so nice. We made a lot of friends during our stays, and we even ran into some of them in other countries. If you haven't stayed in a hostel before, they mostly have rooms with bunk beds, shared bathrooms and a standard room. So, we got to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and checked into our hostel. My aunt and uncle were staying in a room with a friendly German couple. My aunt, uncle, and I went out to drink one night. I danced, listened to music, ate delicious food, and did everything else. When we got back, the German couple was sleeping in their bunk beds, so we went into the common room so as not to wake them up. Our door opened in the common area so it was easy to access our room. So, we were drinking at the bar, and I started talking to this other person. He was tall and big, and his hair was all tangled up. He looked like he was in his 30s. I was talking to this guy in a friendly way, but he took it in a strange direction. He started asking me if I wanted to go for a walk or go up to the roof with him. He then began to touch my leg. I moved away from his hand and told him I was sorry, but I had a boyfriend. He laughed and told her, "You need a Peruvian boyfriend." "No," I said with a laugh, "I'm fine with my boyfriend." Then he said, "Well, if your boyfriend cared about you, he wouldn't have let you go to South America without him." At that point, I showed how uncomfortable I was, or at least I thought I did, and decided to go to bed. I said good night to my aunt and uncle and told them I was going to my room. I had been lying in bed for a few minutes when the door opened and someone came in. I didn't turn around because I thought it was my uncle. All of a sudden, someone pulled back my sheets and got into bed with me. When I turned over, it was the Peruvian guy. Usually, I would fight in a situation like this, but I was drunk and this guy was much more important than I was. I stopped moving, and he smiled and pulled me closer. I just started telling him no over and over again so that the German couple would wake up. I have no idea what he told me. I only remember him breathing heavily, touching me, and trying to kiss me while I tried to push him away. I finally told him no, to stop, to leave, to stop. I then started to kick him. He got out of bed, buckled his belt, and zipped up his pants before sneaking out. I didn't even notice that he had already taken off his pants. I shook for a moment before I finally got out of bed. I cracked the door to our room open and started calling for my aunt in a very quiet voice. She was laughing and talking to someone when she told me to wait. She had no idea what was going on, which wasn't her fault. When my uncle saw me, he came into the room and asked what was going on. I started crying right away and told him before he ran out of the room in a rage. The next thing I know, I hear a lot of yelling coming from the standard room, and then my aunt and the hostel manager fly in and turn on the light. I was crying and stood there, so they gave me a hug. The manager asked if I was okay, and if I knew who it was. So, I told them, and we left in this. The German couple woke up to all the noise and didn't know what was going on. They felt terrible that they didn't hear me begging the guy to stop. After a couple of minutes all the yelling stopped and it was silent. My uncle, who was a manager at the hostel, came back into the room and told me that the man wasn't even a guest there. He had gotten past the front door, which was locked and required a key to open. The only guest they had, they kicked him out, and when my uncle left the room, he started screaming and looking for the guy. The manager apologized a lot to me. When he found him, he was laughing and drinking with a group of people as if he hadn't just sexually assaulted a teenager. I think my uncle got physical, which is when everyone started yelling and the manager got involved. After that night, I don't think I slept at all. When I think about this, I get shivers. I know what happened wasn't good, but it's a good thing it didn't get worse. I hope that guy never hurts another woman in the same way again. But you already know that if someone has done something once, they have probably done it many times before. Michael's story starts when I was 14 and living in Argentina. My father's aunt moved to another country and left the house to my parents because they were renting it and it would be better for us to live in a house we own. During the first few weeks in the house, there was no noise or trouble at all. At the time, one of my cousins who lived with us. After he got all of his things in order, he moved in with my aunt. After that, strange things started happening out of the blue. Every time I went to the bathroom, I felt a cold spot right in front of the door. When I first noticed this, it was summer, and the difference in temperature scared me. Then, one morning, my sister saw a girl with long brown hair and a long shirt walking from our bedroom door to the bathroom. The girl had long hair and a long shirt. We used to sleep in bunk beds, and she used to sleep on the bottom bed. So she thought she saw me go to the bathroom when I didn't come back after a few minutes. She got up to check on what was going on. Then she looked over at my bed and saw that I was fast asleep. She was terrified. When she told my mom about it, she tried to make her feel better by saying that she might have been making it up. I've never had anything like that happen with this entity. I mean, I never saw her when I was awake. But when I started taking dance classes, I started dreaming about a girl who was exactly like how my sister had described her in the dream. She was always in a room that was very dark. She was dancing with these cold, dead eyes while wearing ballet shoes and a beautiful dress that went down to her knees. I had this dream often when I lived with my parents. A few weeks ago, I told my brother about it, and he told me that he was always scared to look at himself in my mother's full-body mirror because there was always a girl his age, who would have been about 6 years old at the time, looking back at him. He was always scared by it. He said that he always saw the girl until he was about 14 or 15, maybe even older. I was wondering if our youngest brother had also seen her. So we went to ask him. He said he would only see her if one of us moved out of the house. She always looked like she was about 4 years old, which is the same age he was. So, we started asking everyone in the house for strange facts and putting them together. When I asked my aunt if anyone had died in the house, she said that some people had died while the house was being built. I don't think anyone in our family has died here, though. But there are rumors that the first family to live there did die while it was being built. She told me about a man who seemed to have killed himself and a girl who died when she tried to plug something into an outlet near the bathroom. An interesting fact is that I can't remember a time when our power wasn't out or acting up. No matter how many times my parents tried to fix it, it always broke again, so we never got to use it. My siblings and I think that the different girls we saw or dreamed about were actually the same girl who changed her appearance to make it more comfortable and appropriate for our ages. So, we started to like her, and she kept following us. I don't think she meant to hurt us, though. I just think she was lonely. Give me your thoughts on this story. If you like it, I'll tell you about other things my family and I have done. Thanks for reading, Swamp Dweller. I know that my English might not be the best. Thanks for listening to these scary stories from Argentina that are said to be true. If you liked these scary stories, please click the like button. This helps me a lot and tells me that you want more stories set in other countries. Now, I know that some of these stories might not have the best English, but I did my best to translate them and try to fix them. These were some interesting stories, and I know what you're thinking. Wow, it seems like there's crime, cryptids, and ghosts everywhere in the world, and you'd be right.